Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and I'm with an old friend, Walter Rucker, and I haven't talked to him in many, many years. Got involved. I was going to go down and see some seances. I think Walter would probably be one of the few experts in the world that I would ever go to when it comes to seances and how that works and who's reliable. And I don't know how many he's been at, but I think it's quite a few. And so today I'm working on my songbook, and I remember some stories that Walter told me about music and dead musicians and seances. And so I wanted to touch base with him today and pick his brain on music and whatever else he's got, because he's a guy that's got a lot of wisdom. He reads a lot. He's got a massive collection of material that he has access to. So welcome, Walter, and thank you for helping me out on this spirit thing, because I remember you have some pretty wild stories that you were telling about what happens in seances. So maybe explain maybe the different types of seances, and then how many you've been at, and then we'll get to the part about music and musicians.
Okay. Well, it's first of all, it's good to see you in person instead of just swapping jibes over Facebook.
Yeah.
But and please pass along my hellos to Desta and the rest
Yes.
of your crew as well.
Yeah.
Uh, the You can't really separate music from the seance form, and there it's really one type of seance, the physical mediumship seance, and
Yeah.
the physical mediums, and there are not too many of them anymore. There used to be back in the spiritualist days, and up until they're almost present day. There was a tons and tons of these spiritual mediums, and they combined music in their seances um, in lots of different ways. Sometimes it was ambient music, sometimes it was background music. But the one thing they always had in common, however they used it, and I'll tell you a little bit about my modern experience with it is that it set a tone, and that tone. This gets back to the old Tesla saying of everything's vibration, frequency, resonance,
Yeah.
and in the modern or even in the old timey seances, there was a big portion of the success of the seance came from the ability of the collective energy of the group of the sitters themselves. There was something about that we don't still understand, I believe, but there's something about energy collecting is greater, the sum of it is greater than the units of it. And you can see this in a modern day seance, for instance. There's always a lot of boombox material, things you can sing along to. You usually are holding hands in the seance circle. It's used for uh, intermediate communication while the physical medium who is sitting in a closet or a cabinet is adjusting to his next particular um, evidential state that he's going to bring forward. It's from the start to the end. Music has always been something in the physical mediumship seance, which was inclusive of and a very important part of. And again, it's this whole idea of vibration, frequency. Even if you're talking about extraterrestrial contact, there is a musical component of that has been highly successful. I have a very good friend of mine that runs CE5 sessions. You may remember Gary Boris and his chattering
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I forgot about him.
walkie talkies.
Yeah.
Well, Gary still runs CE5s up at his place and has for years. He's still up there doing it once or twice a month. He starts every seance with music. He's a musician and an artist himself, much like Doug Auld
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so he finds that it settles everybody down who's sitting at the CE5. He finds that it creates a common atmosphere of collective unity, of wanting to have experiences with the extraterrestrials. It becomes something that is part and parcel of every CE5 that I've ever been to, and any of he that he runs right now. So you have this idea of music contact. You have the idea of physical mediumship, spirit involvement. All these things have a kind of a resonance together that of separate from each other, don't seem to be connected. But when you start bringing them into context with each other, you start to see that there is a connection there. Spirit likes music. ETs like music. What is the common denominator across those that makes that attractive? I'd have to laugh a little bit about this because you got these people that are all the time talking about calling in. They're
Mhm.
calling ET in, like ET sitting out there like a puppy dog,
Yeah.
and they throw out some, they throw out
Yeah.
whatever it is, a dog whistle, a light.
Yeah.
I don't mean to belittle some of these people, but it's kind of funny to think that they have this idea that they're the center of the attention,
Yeah.
and that they're bringing ETs coming to them, and they're bringing them in, and it is. I just have to laugh.
Yeah. I
Come
agree.
on, Grant.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this is just it's really beyond funny. But beside the point, what they do enumerate is the advantages of trying to make, as part of your contact, a frequency solution,
Mhm.
a how should we call it, a level of understanding, sort of like a wave that you can pass information through and get information back. And what is music anyway? Music is nothing more than what we hear in our ears, our 20 to 20,000 kilohertz ears.
Mhm.
It's what we hear in our ears. It's what we understand as vibration that's turned into something meaningful in our brains. And so it's really nothing more than a medium of contact. And as as you've alluded to, you sent me some notes I appreciated, by the way, on your research on this stuff, and I found that quite fascinating. By the way, I learned quite a bit from it. But the bottom line is, I don't care if it's extraterrestrial contact, if it's spirit contact, there is always a vibrational component. Contact is the essence of vibration. One is the other. You can't have it without that. And whether these guys all call
Mhm.
themselves experts at calling in extraterrestrials, or what they're really doing is just providing a medium of frequency that carries their intention, it carries their message, it carries their communication. That's what is important to the extraterrestrial community. That's what's important to the spirit community.
Mhm.
I I think I really found this to be the case when my wife and I were sitting in a seance. And you alluded to this a little bit earlier. We were sitting in a seance. I want to say it was with Warren Campbell. Warren's no longer a physical medium, but at the time he was very active. I sat with Warren quite a few times, and we were sitting there just having our regular seance and singing along, and various spirits were coming out of the cabinet and into the air, and the spirit voices and the noises and all the things that come with a successful seance. And the medium called my wife, Chris, to the front of the circle, and there is always a chair sitting right in front of the cabinet that is for people to come up, and usually it's to have something evidential done. You come up, you sit down with them. The physical medium, will take his ectoplasmic covered hand and put it on your shoulder or on your head, or bang. He used to bang me on the back because he knew it irritated me, and he banged me on the back. And they're trying to say, "Hey, we're physical. We're
Yeah.
real. We're here at this. This isn't just an apparition. This isn't some ghost in the corner. We can." Especially with ectoplasmic coverage, we can materialize. We can have conversation with you. We're physical. You're physical. You get it.
Yeah.
And so they brought my wife up to the sitter's cabinet seat, and as she came up to sit down, the fellow who was running the seance had a boom box, and he had multiple mute pieces of music, YMCA, and
Yeah.
this and that and the other things to sing and whatnot. And part of what he had on there was some what we would call rock and roll kind of music. But as she sat down at the uh,
The
chair up
chair.
there,
Yeah.
the boombox kicked right into Imagine from John Lennon. Uh, and I mean, he did nothing. The fellow directing the boombox did nothing. Didn't touch a thing. It just kicked in. It started playing, and through a very weak but very distinguished John Lennon voice, you could hear him come through and address the crowd. My wife was one of those '60s, Beatles girls
Yeah.
with the caps, and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with it and back then, and the girls really got off on it. And so she had the Beatle room and all that kind of stuff. Never mentioned to anybody in the seance. We never mentioned to anyone for 40 years. I mean, we were already in our 60s at the
Yeah.
time. So it's been a long time since John Lennon was playing. And for that to come through, it pointed out that not only can spirit understand what's important and bring it forward evidential things like that, they also understand what your interests are.
Mhm.
And again, they're not reading your mind as much as they're coordinating the 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 reflections of your mind, the vibrations of your mind with their ability to pick up on that.
Mhm.
And I firmly think that as they before they ever brought her up and sat her down there, somebody up there in spirit heaven up there said, "Hey, I remember that girl. Do
Yeah.
this. This will be
Yeah.
a fun thing to do," because they
Yeah.
like to have a lot of fun in there, and the seances are fun. But it enhances that entire idea that the music industry, the artists in particular themselves, go. Leslie Flint was a violinist. A lot of them were musicians, and a lot of them understood that,
Mhm.
and they understood it on a Tesla level, not on a level such as oh god, this is Rachmaninoff, which
Yeah.
happened to come through one of the mediums that you had brought up forward to me. They didn't understand. Didn't understand it on that level. They understood it on the tonal level and on the communication level.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that, and you mentioned, channeling and one of the things that you find with music in the channeled state is that a lot of channels will use music to prepare themselves mentally. There is a theta wave state that apparently enhances your ability to centralize your thoughts, to go into altered states of communication, altered states of mind, channel states if you want them. It helps
Mhm.
you ease into that stuff. And we saw this with Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, when they wanted to address the portal, what they do? They brought in a bunch of Native Americans and sat them around and make them drum. And they drummed at a particular hertz level and a particular thing that was conducive to bringing through energies and creating an energetic field that allowed them to have the entity conversations, communications that they have there. So as you go across it, the board, whether it's ET contact or physical mediumship, mental mediumship, the idea of tenacity and the idea of music and its quality and its necessity in some ways becomes very prevalent.
So you talked about I was going to come down there for remember you were trying to get me into that one guy's
Was it
s-
Kai Moogie?
no, it was the other guy. He was very particular about who came
David
in.
Thompson.
Thompson, yeah. And
Yes.
and so you see that sort of attitude in terms of the common frequency that you do because you remember the Philip experiment that was done in Toronto in the
Yes.
70s where they were meditating and nothing happened for a whole year and then someone said why don't you do it like a seance and start playing 99 bottles of beer on the wall and stuff like that and suddenly this Philip that they'd made up it suddenly appears and it was that idea of the where you'll get seances where they don't want somebody who's very skeptical, who's going to ruin the sort of the vibration in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I'd like you to talk about is you mentioned the trickster thing, which I've written a little bit about. You probably studied it. What's the relationship in the spirit world? A couple of stories that you may tell where they like to, and it's almost like they'll come like if you're doing the dog whistle thing, they'll come, but they'll stay 5 kilometers away. And they come as
Yeah.
different types of objects, and you think they're stupid, like they're going to come in and just let you capture them and take them to jail or something like that. But they always play these little games. So what is there in the spirit world where you get this trickster idea where they like to play games and have fun?
Yeah, the one thing I can remember in particular is we were sitting in seance. I've been in probably somewhere between 2 and 3 dozen seances,
Yeah.
5 or 6 different physical mediums.
Yeah.
It's difficult to remember which ones were which, but I can remember this particular seance one time, and um, the there's always a spirit control,
Oh
sort of like
yeah.
the MC.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the head spirit guy,
Yeah.
and he's responsible for bringing the other spirits in and out, and sort of directing the flow of things and communicating with the sitters more often than not. And we were and we were sitting there, and we were going through this whole set of different uh, shows of evidential mediumship, ectoplasmic flows, and the like. And all of a sudden, it just all shut down, and you could hear a violin, and well, could hear it. It was way 50 yards away. Just
Yeah.
barely could hear it. And everybody started to get quiet, and we stopped singing, and you could hear it a little bit louder, and you hear it a little bit louder, and then one of the spirit control happened to say, "Can you guys hear that?" And we said, "Well, yeah, barely." And I mean, you hadn't got barely out of your mouth when it was in the middle of the seance room, as loud as you could possibly, I mean, ear grabbing loud. It was like, and it was, "Did you happen to hear that? Did you enjoy that?" And they just want to have fun with you, because the levity it keeps vibration up. By high vibration and collective vibration is an important part of the communication paradigm with
Yeah.
these folks. But more than that, you know, they're not sitting over there flapping, white wings
Yeah.
and praying to Jesus all the time. They're doing their own things. They like to have fun. They have their own things that they like to do. A lot of the things have to do with music.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual to get music introduced in ways like that into the seance room.
Yeah. Louis Armstrong. Who was the guy that brought Louis Armstrong in?
Louis Armstrong was also David Thompson,
Okay.
and Louis would come. Well, Louis actually made quite a few different seances, and he'd always like to come through. He'd come through with Kai Moogie. He'd come through with David Thompson. He'd come through with Warren Kaler. So he came through with a number of them, and others did the same thing. Winston Churchill was a common spirit entity
Oh yeah. Yeah.
across mediums, but Louis Armstrong would like to come in, and he would come in, and at times, depending upon the seance and the energy level and what he wanted to do, there would be a trombone floating through the seance room that you could see. You could see floating through the seance room. You could hear it playing, and he'd be back near the spirit cabinet. He'd be back there singing to it. So he would sing the things that we, used to remember Louis Armstrong from. I
Yeah.
can't remember his most famous thing, I guess,
Wonderful
was
Life. Yeah.
Wonderful Life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he'd sing those things, and the trumpet would go around the room. It would stop in front of you,
Wow.
and play the tunes. And I'm not a musician, and I'm not a music aficionado, but
Yeah.
doggone, it sure sounded like something that he would do from what I remember. And then he'd sing in perfect pitch and harmony with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yet obviously his spirit voice was someplace, that spirit trombone, even though it was a physical trombone, but it was spirit controlled, was right there in the seance room with us. We could see it moving around. You could see the keys moving up and down. Again, if I wish I had a better understanding of that instrument to see if the keys were being were being
Yeah. Push
pressed
down.
in
Yeah.
yeah in the right rhythmic order or not. But boy, it's just, again, it was a lot of fun. And again, evidence of the most important part of all of this is evidence of the continuation of life and of the afterlife.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask you. What, because people might request like, why would these people show up, and what's this all about? And you're talking about it's almost like an understanding, like the UFO thing. When somebody sees a UFO, I always ask them, what was it doing? And they go, and it wasn't doing anything. And I go, well, where was it going? I don't know. Wasn't it? Do you think it saw you? Yeah, I think so. And it's like, well, the whole idea, like it's just sort of like a wake up call. They're not really doing anything. They're doing this education, and people wonder, why they don't feed the poor people and stop the war and stuff, and they don't realize that that's our job. And these I think the spirit world, you can correct me, the spirit world, I think it's the same sort of thing. It's like an education thing where they're trying to raise
Mhm.
your understanding that it's not the world you think it is. That
It's exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah, it has very specific lessons to be learned. The afterlife is real. You're an eternal being, all those things. But underlying that, Grant, is this idea, as you brought out, that what we think we what we think we know reality is, we're clues.
Yeah.
And here's the spirits will say, well, here's a little bit of an idea of things that can happen in your physical reality that you can't understand, know nothing about. And if this can happen, think of all the things that are happening that you don't know about, that you don't see, or could happen if you had the wherewithal, the vibrational wherewithal to be available to them. The you know a lot of what goes on in terms of communication at that level is very much about being on what we call the same frequency as. It's the lover's syndrome. I know what my wife's thinking before she says it. How do
Yeah.
I do it? Did I read her mind? No, we're just on the same vibrational level.
Yeah.
And you hear this all the time. Oh, yeah, I know his vibe.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about not the actual telepathic mind reading, which you don't do, by the way. You don't ever read anybody's mind. You get on the same frequency as them and then understand it like a tuning fork,
Yeah.
like two tuning forks. You vibrate at the same frequency and then you understand. That's why you see communication between people who are in love or people who have been together for a long time, both of which my wife's listening to this, both of which we are. Uh, but the point is that uh, that that communication is also the basis for telepathic communication.
Yeah.
And we have the ability. You're doing a great series, by the way. I'm glad we brought this up. This telepathy series that you're doing, that is just outstanding stuff.
Yeah.
I've poured over that stuff quite a few times, but it basically gets down to the same thing. Being able to see with a mask on, being able to use telepathic communication. This is all about, again, frequency, vibration, and resonance.
Yeah.
We are learning all the time how to get better and better at that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if in 25 years, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, we are beginning to have more of a telepathic communication with each other than we have a language based communication with each other. Because, as you said,
Yeah.
when you hear people talking about their experiences with ET, they'll say, well, did you see him move them? Well, I didn't see him move his mouth. Well, how did you? I just heard it in my head.
Yeah.
Well, that's just vibrational implantation, is all that is. And I say that's all that is. We don't understand very little about it, but that
Yeah.
is what it is. And we're going to understand more and more about it as we head toward being a telepathic
Yeah.
society down the road. Yes. Part of our evolution. Yes. Is it in us now? Yes. Could we enhance it? Absolutely. As you know from your work with
Mhm.
the telepathic folks, um, that it is also a learned art. You can get more telepathic now if you want to be, but it requires a more concerted effort on our part. There'll be a time when we won't have language anymore and all of our communication will be by thought, and then nobody will have that'll be the end of politics, by the way, because then nobody will have. You can't keep it. You can't keep a secret from anybody.
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter. What would it be like if Donald Trump was telepathic? I mean, we were able to read his mind. I mean, it'd be frightening, but it would also put him in a real bind because
Yeah.
he couldn't pass off a lot of what he considers to be truthful as truth.
Yeah, and you may get it because I don't know if you saw the interview that Jim Semivan, the
Yeah.
equivalent to a two-star general at CIA, said when they asked him about the 7 hour briefing that he got, and he scared the living daylights out of him. And then the guy asked him, he said, "Well, was it to do with UFOs?" And he said, No, no, they really didn't make any headway with UFOs. But he was psychic material. He couldn't believe some of the stuff that oh, that's true. I didn't think I was a bull. That's all bull. And no, no, that's true. We can actually do that. It's like, and so you can see that it would make sense that they would be working on this thing, and hopefully they get it right because, as you know, I mean, you can use it for good or evil. Like, this idea that if you get the military, they discover a drop of water, they immediately start to figure out how to drown somebody in it. Like this
Yeah,
idea that everything's a weapon. And
yeah.
so it has great potential. Why do you think that you see this? And I have a chance to interview Kai Dickens again in 2 weeks. So if you have a question you want me to ask, I'll see if I can get it in. But you have that, which I thought was one of the biggest events in 50 years that I'd worked. That was just like with these kids that were 100, because everybody's always saying, well, it's not 100%. It's only like the Orion stuff is only a little bit above chance. That doesn't mean anything, all this kind of stuff. But you get these kids who are 100%. I said that was the most dramatic thing I'd ever seen in my life in terms of changing the world. If that, because they're at Stanford right now with the one young kid, and Harvard apparently has gotten in, and the report is coming out in September, and this one kid apparently is just blowing them away with this telepathy thing. So you see that, but why do you think the seances has dropped off? Is it the attitude of people like back in the 19th century, it was like the spiritualism, what it was like, it was 20% or 25% of America was spiritualists, when it first
Hmm.
started, and you had a different attitude. What do you credit to
Yeah.
why the physical mediums have sort of dropped off?
Well, you kind of led right to the second part of our conversations. I don't mean for you to jump to it, but
Yeah.
uh, I think that physical mediumship is run its course. I think it's done what it's needed to do.
Okay.
I think Spirit understood that this was a really great instrument for
Yeah.
them to bring us new information. Early on, back in the 1800s, we're talking about the Fox sisters and
Yeah. Yeah.
the Bangs and all those original
Yeah.
mediums. It was more about getting people to understand that they were eternal beings.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the focus. It wasn't even so much about there is an afterlife, because sometimes they had no idea where this information was coming from, but they did understand that they were talking about things that they had no idea about. And it was a little bit of just kind of, okay, let's go down this avenue for a little while. Let's talk, let's open our minds up to this. And then next thing you know, you've got physical mediumship seances, you've got the extraordinary events in those. You have That's an extrapolation from those early spiritualist days. Um, and as you pull on that, it's just sort of like Spirit is just dragging us through slowly, as we can sort of keep up with the flow of new things and new ideas that change your entire world and how you look at things. Look, I don't think anything that I can think of changed my view of of the modern world than the seance structure, the history of physical mediumship, certainly mental mediumship as well. That communication, that direct communication, and the information that has come from that. So I'm still cutting from a lot of the old cloth myself. But what we have now is we're on the verge of open contact.
Yeah.
We're literally on the verge of us having a sit down across the desk communication with extraterrestrials. Open contact has been announced for 20 and 27. Now, if you just stop and think about that for a second, you put that with spiritualism, physical mediumship, mental mediumship, all of these things that are hinting about afterlife, um, extra capabilities, human capabilities, communication, frequency, all of these things. They've been dragging us slowly, slowly, slowly along as our culture got more, oh, I don't want to say sophisticated, but that's a fair word. But as it evolved anyway, they gave us more and they gave us more and they gave us more. Could you do open contact in 1845?
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
No, it wasn't
Yeah.
going to
You're right.
happen.
Yeah.
First of all, there wasn't the news
Yeah.
structure. You didn't have a way of getting that news out. people would know what to do with it. They make up anything that they could think of rather than thinking about extraterrestrials. It wasn't even on the plate back then. Well, it's on
Yeah.
the plate now.
Yeah.
And as I see open contact becoming the ipso facto paradigm shifting most important human event in the history of humanity, coming up within 18 months. I mean, we're halfway through 25 now.
Mhm.
We're going to see more UFO sightings. We're going to see stranger things. Look at these spears flying around all over the place. I mean, those things are just fascinating.
Yeah.
They're fascinating because they're so simple and yet so complex. They're asking us to think. They're asking us to pull up. Come on, raise your vibration, enhance your ability to accept new information. Prepare yourselves for new information because it's coming. So in 2027, we're going to have two things that are going to happen.
Okay.
One's kind of funny,
Okay.
and one is unbelievable. Kind of funny thing is Donald Trump will not be around for this. Now,
Heard that.
you can take that to the bank.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
He's not going to be around for this. Now, when I say that, doesn't mean that his presidency will end and then open contact will begin. Those two things could be happening at the same time, but he's not going to be a major player in this. We have got to get our heads screwed on correctly. And we have got to embrace a much more majority point of view of all things esoteric and etheric and all things political. That's going to require that movement and those lines of philosophy get pushed to the side. He's a very important part of what's going on with us right now, because we all learn by contrast.
That's right.
And if we're ever going to learn anything from Donald Trump, we're going to learn, in my opinion, not from a political standpoint. I don't do politics.
Yep.
But just from a cultural and educational standpoint, we're going to learn about him, and that will give us a basis to say we like that or we reject that. We want to treat people like this, or we don't want to treat people like this. And it happens to align with the fact that the Pleiadians, which will be the first, because they look the most like us, they're the closest to us genetically, they will be the first people that are people. I say people, I guess that's fair. They're going to be the first beings that we have contact with, and that's going to happen in 2027. You can just write that down. I'll stake my reputation on it. Bashar stakes his reputation on it. Daryl Anka stakes his reputation on it. So consequently, we're looking at the end of one instructional phase, which included physical mediumship, a lot of mental mediumships, spiritualism, all of these different things. And we're going to move that over into extraterrestrial contact. Now, does that mean that Kai Mugi, who is the only active physical medium traveling internationally right now, and I've talked to Kai about this, does that mean Kai is going to quit? No. It doesn't mean that at all. He still has an audience. He still has new things to say and old things to reiterate. He's still going to be in the physical mediumship business. And I think he'll be there as long as he lives. And hopefully that will be a long time, him and Julia. But the next step is the one that we have to take. And this is the one that's so exciting. Because not only are we going to get open contact, and we're going to get the absolute global, without a doubt, undeniable, can't turn away from it, evidence that we're not alone, that there are extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, extratemporal, whatever you want to call them, non-human intelligence, that they exist. We're going to get that information. It's going to change the way we do and look at everything. But everything has led up to that. We're now facing open contact here in 2027. And we're going to get a lot of information from that we have been clamoring for. The most important piece, in my opinion, is going to be, we're going to get our entire history. I mean, think about that just for a second, Grant. All of this history that we thought was right, it wasn't. All of this history that was conjured up to support somebody's agenda is going to go away. All of the true history, and I'm talking back to the Anunnaki days.
Mhm.
I'm talking about back when there were no human beings and they were created more or less by genetic engineering, all the way to the present. All of those things and what's really going on, what really went on with Eisenhower and the Greys, what really went on with Roswell, these important extraterrestrial events and non-important events, non-extraterrestrial events. We're going to get all of that. It's going to, you can take your history book and throw it in the garbage can. 18 months from now, we're going to have a completely different set of facts to deal with. And that is going to be the single most game-changing moment in the history of humanity. It won't all come at once. We won't all give, we won't sit down and get the Akashic records in
Mhm.
5,000 pages and have to sit and read it. It'll be, doled out to us as we show that we have the need for it. They used to say, Bashar says this all the time, you haven't done anything with the information I've given you. Why should I give you any more? And that's going to be the same way with us. Take this information, now do something with it.
Yeah.
Change your life, think about it, talk amongst yourselves, uh, create some ideas from it, come back with some questions about it. Do whatever it is that you need to do, and then we'll give you some more, and we'll give you some more. And next thing you know, we'll be facing 2030, 2040, 2050. We'll be telepathic. We'll be, we'll be their UFOs. We'll
Yeah.
be the people out in space that they're looking up and going, what that is. Wonder what's that running across there.
Yeah.
We're going to be those people. We're going to bring it to the Bernard Star people. We're going to bring it to
Yeah.
those folks out there that are slightly less evolved than we are. We're going to be their ETs. We're going to be their UFOs. This is an unbelievable time. I'm 73 years of age.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'll make it for 20 more years. Chances are against that. My wife just gave me an actuarial table the other day and just said, you're going to die in 10 years. I said, well, thank you for that. But the good news was she dies in 9 years. So I get to outlast her for you. But but the point of it is that I'm going to get to see a lot of it. Uh, I won't get to see all of it. I think I'm going to get to see the most important parts. Grant, what are you, 39, 40, whatever? You're going to get to see the same amount, probably a little bit more than I am. These are the most exciting possible times at all. And if I have anything that I like to tell people that will listen to this, be prepared. Open your mind up. Start dropping things that no longer serve you, belief systems that no longer serve you. Drop them, get rid of them. Prepare yourself. This is going to be a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
And it's coming quick and it's going to go fast. And you're either going to be there or you're not.
Wonderful. Yeah, actually, I've had some few synchronicities with you. I get another one now. I was actually just researching an AI, and they brought up Coldplay, the music of the spheres, and I said I need a quote, and Martin, the head guy for Coldplay, said, "Everybody's an alien somewhere."
That's right.
That's so you brought the same thing up, and you mentioned this. I want to get into maybe whatever details Bashar. Explain who Bashar is and any details as to because who's going to be making the contact? Is this a government contact or is this somebody personal? And how is he given details as to how this is going to play out?
Yeah, and he gives you the general scope of things without giving you the specifics.
Yeah.
As he often says, he says, I'll tell you it's Christmas, but I'm not going to open your presents for you. So his idea, the way he sees it, Bashar is not one who does predictions. And he doesn't for a lot of reasons. One, things can change so quickly. But when he starts telling you about things that are going to happen, you can bet that he's reading the energies. He sees it
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
and it's irrefutable. And he uses these words: irrefutable, undeniable,
Yeah.
take it to the bank,
Yeah.
type of thing. But but his feeling is that there are a couple of things. Number one, he says, first of all, understand, and he alludes to without specifically talking about the Eisenhowers and the Gray.
Uh-huh.
But he said, this has been going on a while. We've been in contact with people in your government, people in high places. Whether or not it's a presidential thing, I have the tendency to think that there's not much way that you can have an extraterrestrial contact scenario without the president knowing, at least in cursory terms, what's going on, if not even directing. Or the White House could very well be the center of the direction of this ET contact thing. But regardless of that, he's saying, look, we're talking to your scientists, we're talking to your military guys, we're talking to the people with good vibration, if you want to say. And we've been talking to them for a long time. And some of this information has been shared, and some of it shows up in our technologies. So it's not something that's just going to be plopped on us and, oh, wow, there's UFOs everywhere and there's Pleiadians walking up and down the streets. It's not going to be that kind of thing. He's saying, oh, we've been setting this up. And my feeling of what he's saying there is that these people are going to be coming out and supporting this. When open contact comes, these folks that we've been talking to, been working with, and know of our existence, and also know of this 2027 timing thing, they're going to be coming forward. And they're going to be coming out of the intelligence communities. I'm positive of that. They're going to be coming out of the military communities. I'm fairly sure of that.
Yeah.
They're going to be coming out of the scientific communities, educational communities. They've been talking across the board to numbers of folks about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. Now, the specifics are the Pleiadians have the closest genetics we do, and they look like us. So if you were going to go meet somebody from outer space,
Yeah.
what would you like to meet? Would you like to meet somebody that kind of looked like you and kind of talked like you and kind of acted like you, or would you like to meet some triangular head guy with 15 legs? And I mean, this is a no-brainer. They're going to make it easy on us.
Yeah.
The Pleiadians will be the first, and following on with them is a very interesting follow-on, and that is from what are called the Aiel. And the Aiel are the hybrid beings that have been living on the ships. They're mostly children still.
Okay.
That the Greys have taken our genetic material and mated it with their genetic material and created a whole another hybrid race. We're hybrid. All of us are hybrids to begin with. We're all mixed up, pups full of all kinds of genes.
Yeah.
But this is a specific race that they are creating to actually enhance and eventually supplant the human race. These people are going to be part of who we are making contact with. Now, the anticipation is they're not just going to drop onto the White House lawn.
Yeah.
It's going to be groups. There will be a group of Pleiadians, a group of hybrid beings that will meet with a group of like-minded Earthlings. And maybe they'll do that out in the desert someplace, or at Shasta, or, whomever, wherever. They'll do it in somewhat seclusion. And there will be preparations made and conversations had. How do you take the next step with this? But eventually, they're going to sit down at a table in a press conference with a mic, just like you and I have on a Zoom session, and say, hey, guys, guess what? we exist, and here's your whole history, and here's a bunch of good technology that we'd like for you to bring with. We'll help you implement this or explain it to you. A lot of that's going to be medical vibrational technology. I'm positive that's going to be the case. I think that's where our medicine is heading, to a vibrational state. But they're going to do this, and they're going to introduce this in such a way that two things are going to happen. One, it is not going to be, unless you just are you're so out of it. You're so consumed with your physical, materialistic, approach to things that you just can't see it. You deny the inevitable. You deny the obvious. Everybody else in the world is going to be going, wow, this is cool. Look at this. I may have never believed in extraterrestrials. I'm believing these guys. They're going to show things and do things and create scenarios for us that make it undeniable. And it's not just going to be a Western thing, although, Grant, here in the West, we have the hardest, we're the ones that have the biggest problem with this whole ET thing. And when you go over to Europe, you speak to the Chinese, even the Russians, they've got a much broader interpretation of this. So, but it won't be just a United States thing. It will be a global thing. So everybody in that's living at the time on our planet can have a communication or a conversation with anyone else that's at least somewhat open-minded
Mhm.
and be able to talk about this. Oh, did you happen to see the thing that, yeah, wasn't that cool? That didn't they? Wasn't she pretty? She was a pretty lady. And I didn't much care for him. He was a little,
Yeah.
but we're going to start having those kinds of conversations. And that's something that I trust with 100% of my heart. That's going to happen. It's going to be great times, man. It's going to be wonderful times.
Beautiful. And when did Bashar first use this date? Going back a couple of years?
It's been a couple of years. He's been hitting at it for a
Yeah.
while. He started hitting at it because of the 40-year cycle thing. And he said, you guys, you humans, you like your cycles of things. In 40 years, it takes about 40 years for you to spin through all of what you learned and then break it through and go into your next cycle. Well, what was it? When was Roswell was 47,
Yeah.
87, Bashar came out. 40 more years is 2027.
Yeah.
So he has that kind of Fibonacci mathematical approach to it. He says, you guys like 40-year things, so we'll use that. That's good. That's good. But it also has to do with the fact that we are prepared for it. We're prepared from the standpoint of a vibrational standpoint. We're prepared from an educational standpoint. Boy, look at all the things that we're seeing now. You got your Skywatcher people. You've got all of these different folks reporting on these UFO things. My
Yeah.
friend Gary Boris, his CE5s are just outstanding with communication and like. So we're just, we're starting to get there little by little by little, just like they drug us through spiritualism into mediumship and the physical mediumship, more information, more information. Well, we've hit we popped the cork now.
Yeah.
And so Bashar is saying that's when it's going to happen because it's the right timing for you guys because you like those 40-year cycles. But more importantly, there is a collective energy which says you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And they were never going to come here when we weren't ready for it. It's always been in our hands. Now, they're the ones that have to, fly their ships down here or however they happen to want to make their travel. They're the ones going to have to show up. But it's always been in our hands to get prepared for that. One of the things that he talked about, which I thought was interesting, is he said, and we can't do this now. If you ask somebody, hey, Dr. Jojo, would you do me a favor and read my vibration? Tell me what megahertz I'm spinning up at.
Yeah.
We can't read the vibration of anything right now. We can't read the vibration of a book. We can't read the vibration of a rock. We can't read our vibrations to see where we're at. But we have a scale, and that scale is kind of like 80,000 to 200,000
Okay.
cycles per second.
Okay.
That's physical reality.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of where we are. We're all in that area. He was saying the other day, he said, if you went back as you are 40 years ago and appeared as you are right now to somebody 40 years ago, he said, you'd look like a glowing being to them because your vibration, not mine particularly, but our vibration commonly now is so much higher than it was even 40 years ago and 40 years from that,
Mhm.
that the state of our ability to take on new information and think in terms that we've never thought of before, again, our vibrational state, which determines all that, has elevated. And part of that is this educational process is the more we understand, the more we learn, the more we think, the more we do, the more we assimilate, the more we prove out to ourselves our own personal vibration, if we could read it. You can see it going up. And if you go to a Bashar, you call a seminar or class
Mm.
or a channeling session, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, people will often come up to him and say, hey, what's my vibration right now? He goes, 137,500. And he always likes to laugh about it a little bit. He says, by the way, if every time you ask me what your vibration is, you drop your vibration because you're thinking about the wrong thing. You don't need to be thinking about the math of this. You need to be thinking about what's happening, what
Yeah.
are the consequences of this. But we have we have evolved during this period of time to much higher vibrational beings. Spirit communication is going to be easier for us. Can you imagine 20 years from now, 25 years from now, if I want to get a hold of my dead mother and dead father,
Yeah.
that I'll have a device that will be able to do that? I'll be able to have communication with them
Yeah.
or with any other spirit for that matter. We've had people doing that on a very fundamental, basic level for quite some time. We've had spirit boxes, communication through radios, but we're really going to get to the point where if we want to look up mom and dad, and we're having, having the cheeseburger, we'll be able to, hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm having cheeseburger. What you doing? Well, we're up here taking classes on etheric animosity or something, whatever they're doing,
Yeah.
whatever the heck they're doing. But
Yeah.
we're going to start to have those communication. This is all part of our evolution. It's all part of the massive changes that we're going to be seeing as we progress over the next 10, 20, and 30 years.
Yeah, yeah, you brought up an interesting point that I never thought about because you've probably heard me lecture on this thing about everybody thinks that UFOs is the way it always been. And I said, no, no, I was around in 1975. It was a different world altogether. And then you see the pattern, it starts with wooden ships with propellers and balloons and stuff like that. And then it goes to Foo Fighters, then it goes to green fireballs, then the Adamski crafts, then crafts with windows, then the triangles, and then now it's orbs. And you see this, it's almost like a progression, like they're turning the pages and they're moving people as your mindset. And you mentioned the spiritual thing, which I never thought about, even though I wrote a little bit about it in a book, because you start looking at things that you think, well, that's just coincidence. The idea of materialism came up in the Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. It was
Mhm.
1848. It was exactly the same year as the spiritualist movement started with the Fox sisters. And you
Right.
go, like, is that coincidence? And it's this opposite thing that you're talking about. And I don't know if you follow channelers. If you do, I'd like to hear your opinion on channelers. But Paul Selleck, I listen to, and he talks about this all the time. He never makes predictions either. The only prediction he ever made was just before 2016. He said, you wondered about, I can't remember how it was. You wondered about choice. You want to see, do I pick up the salt or the pepper? The table's about to be turned over. And he said, what has been built in fear must now be brought to the surface to be seen in a new light. And we got to get the bodies in the basement are starting to stink. We got to bring the bodies out and we've got to revisit. And there's this opposite thing that you think this is bad and it's actually the thing that's needed to get you to see what's actually going on. And you see the whole psychic thing that now we have these autistic kids who are 100% telepathic. And of course, then people bring up the vaccine thing, and it's like, what difference does it make how they got here? It's almost like you see this idea that maybe they volunteered. And I actually asked, and they said, yeah, some of these kids actually say, yeah, we're here to help you. We came here with this intention that this is part of the plan, that these kids all come in like a wave and they're all autistic and their rate of autism goes up and these kids are highly autistic and they will show that there's actually this hill and they're meeting on the hill telepathically. They're talking to each other and they're 100% telepathic and they get that thing that the skeptics have always said is not 100%. And so how do you walk around that? And it's sort of like that, maybe almost like the ET thing, where suddenly people realize like, holy shit, this is for real. This is actually real stuff that this goes on, and that sort of switches the consciousness to flip where you get back where you say, when did blacks get the right to vote or women get the right to vote or whatever, and you go, I don't know, I don't know, long time. You don't remember. It just sort of happens, and you just move on to the next thing. And this is something I'd never thought about in the spiritual realm. Is maybe that's what's going on. Just like the ET thing, whatever the force is that's behind this has got a plan. They've done this on 1,000 different planets, and they know exactly what to do next. And the Adamski ships and the Foo Fighters and all that stuff are on another planet that's 100 years behind us, and they just do it over and over again. They know exactly what they're doing. And so this may be this shift that I said with the telepathic thing. I mean, for sure, if there's open ET contact in 2027, everything shifts. And I know that they have made these contacts before. They used to flash lights at them in the 1950s. You have this whole thing at the CIA where they're channeling an alien, where the guy said, I can channel, and okay, sit down. Sit down and let's talk to the alien. And they would be totally open if somebody came in and did that. And then, of course, now they're claiming that the whole landing at Holloman was actually the real deal. that this was, Ford admitted it, Bush admitted it, that was the real deal. And you're starting to see that why wouldn't they try to make contact with these beings? You can see the ice thing, they might want to arrest them or shoot them down or whatever, but there's going to be a faction in there that realizes we got to make this contact in order to make a gain and learn this. Because if you're in that thing, that's what your job is to see 50 years ahead rather than just what's going on right now.
That's funny. And you were talking about them staying 5 kilometers away,
Yeah,
and even in Holloman, I don't know how far away that thing was, but it was hundreds of yards
yeah,
when the ship came down. The
yeah,
film that I've seen of it. One of the things that we have had to do as a species is to be able to elevate our own vibrational abilities, the resonance that makes us who we are as a species. We've had to get that up because one of the reasons that they sit 5 kilometers away or they're over there
yeah,
is because their level of existence is such a higher vibrational level than ours. We're incompatible. I heard you mention the other day, you were talking about the Rendlesham thing, and
yeah,
only one of those guys got burned.
yeah.
Was it Pennigan that got
His
burned?
Burroughs got injured with the
Burroughs. Burroughs
heart
got in.
valve thing. Yeah,
Well, two thoughts occurred to me then. One was, why didn't the other guys get burned?
yeah,
And the second was, the fact that he got burned was not so much that they sent some type of particular ray at him, but the vibrational level of that aircraft or that craft, which is a conscious human like being, was so high that as you approached it, you'd have the same problems that you would have approaching ETs
yeah,
who haven't lowered their vibration to meet you. You're going to get some type of reaction to
yeah,
that. It's going to be a physical one. It's not going to be fun,
yeah,
as Mr. Burroughs find out.
yeah,
But so we see this idea of vibrational compatibility, our vibration raising, their ability to lower their vibration, and meeting in the middle. Again, this is telepathy.
yep, yep,
This is all of this, Tesla related stuff. The bottom line is that we've gotten to a point as a species, they've gotten to a point where they're willing to meet us halfway
yeah,
and lower their vibration in order for us to have this kind of communication. When the Pleiadians come and start talking, when we have these other ET and ET like entities coming to meet with us, there is going to have to be a vibrational compatibility involved. They are all much higher vibrational beings. They've gone through their evolution like we have. They've gone from states much like ours to states much like theirs. We're all going to have to find a way of meeting. And this is going to be the reason why you get other ET species which haven't that capability or don't wish to have that capability. We call it the reptilians. They
mhm,
get reptilians get a lot of bad press, to be
yeah,
quite honest with you. But the one thing that you can say that they are, and that all the other ET species will say about them is that they're pretty aggressive.
yeah,
They're just not a whole lot of fun. And
yeah,
and I've had some problems with that in sitting with physical mediums who bring through extraterrestrials. Paul Hammond is a first person that comes to mind with that. And afterwards, having problems with reptilian influence in my life. I mean, not, gee, was that a reptilian? It's like, gee, that is a reptilian type of thing.
wow,
They're uh, they're an aggressive species. They don't have the empathy that the others do. They're not like the Greys that have no empathy, no emotions at all. They're trying to find their way back from doing the same thing we did. By the way, they destroyed their planet
yeah,
because they just went. They like the Atlanteans and the Lemurians. They went the technology route. It just became immersive in their community, and eventually it destroyed themselves. Well, they've one of the reasons that the Greys, who a lot of those Grey factions are just our future selves anyway, are coming back and saying, "Don't do what we did. You know, you do this and do that, and here's some genetic manipulation which will help you elevate your status as a vibrational creature and help you get to this point where you can have these other conversations, get to this point where we are now at 2027, facing open contact with extraterrestrials. So has it been planned? I think a lot of this has been planned. Heck, you and I planned our lives
Hmm.
before we incarnated.
Yeah.
Why can't other beings and plan, our lives within that? We agreed to this. It's not like we got here and said, "Oh, gee whiz, that's a real
Yeah.
shame that we aren't in control of our lives." We knew before we came down here.
Yeah.
We knew before we incarnated that we were getting ourselves involved, especially at this period of time, in exactly what is going on now. We
Mhm.
had a much better understanding and spirit of things that are happening now than we do in our physical being here. Matter of fact, I like to say, and I think it's the case, we never left spirit.
Mhm.
These are just avatars. These
Yeah.
are just body meat sacks for
Yeah.
an experience that we want to have in this way. The only way we can have this physical experience is to have this physical body, to be here at this particular period of time. This was all planned. We planned it
Mhm.
to be like this. We probably had some conversation. We'll probably have a conversation right now in spirit between you and me. Grant, I said, look, those are a couple of idiots. They actually act like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that yes, everything is part of a plan. It's not part of a conspiracy. It's not part of something that you don't have a particular um, important part of, or that you don't have control over. I like the analogy of here's your life. Your life is a hallway, and you're going to walk down that hallway any way you want. You can walk on the ceiling, you can crawl, you can try to swim, you go in this door and out that door, but you're going to walk that hallway because that hallway's got all of the experiences that you've planned for, all of the
Yeah.
things that are meaningful in your life. They're going to be there. You're going to walk that hallway. How you do it? They don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
But you're going to walk the hallway. You're going to get the experience. Otherwise, what's the point in this?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the
Exactly.
point in this? You know,
Yeah.
we're already spirits. We don't need to come down here to go back there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is all about experience. It's all about uh, learning the things that we need to learn. And then we take the next step and the next step, and those steps never end.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. And we'll walk together that road. It is true. It's like the idea that I always bring up Jim Semivan, who's the guy who was behind the New York Times article. He was the power guy. He was called the big man in Washington. And he's always complaining, well, they didn't ask permission. They just took me in. And it's like, you're in the CIA, you're head of covert ops. Did you ever
You're
ask
right.
permission when you
Yeah,
went and
right.
stole stuff? Or it's and then he's read all the metaphysical stuff. And so you'd think, well, he would know, he knows. I mean, he knows this thing that, he may have chose that. And the whole point was that if he hadn't had that experience, there would be no disclosure because he's the guy who went to the three-letter
Yeah.
agencies and said, you guys can't get out. We're going to get this thing out. We're dropping this thing. And he started the whole movement to put the New York Times article and get the whole thing rolling. And it wouldn't have happened without the experience. So people have to always remember the negative stuff is where you're probably getting a lesson and pay attention. Like you probably planned this. And when you see it that way, then you can psychologically recover. Because as long as you're the victim, you're never going anywhere. You're just,
Yeah.
sort of blaming people, other third persons about what's going on. So it's wonderful. We'll have to have another talk. I've got a girl who's just sort of joined me. She wants to do interviews, and I really don't like doing interviews by myself. But she's claims she's Pleiadian. She's originally from Thailand. She's now living in Oregon, and her daughter is actually getting married. I was going to bring her into this interview, but I'll maybe set up another interview. You can
Yeah, let's
talk to
do
her.
that. I'd
She
love to do
she's
that. Sure.
she believes firmly that she's from Pleiades. She doesn't have any experiences she can call to. But you know as well as I do that there's a lot of people who are contactees who say, I'm not from around here. Like Patti Smith, the first woman to say on Saturday Night Live, said, I'm not from here. I was dropped here. I don't look like and you get this thing over and over and you look at them like, are you serious? Can you actually believe that you're not here, that this is your family? When they say, that was my family I was with and I want to go back and stuff like that. And it's not one or two, it's a lot of people.
It's a
And
lot of
even
people.
even John Denver believed he was from Lyra, the constellation
Yes.
Lyra, and he wrote a song at the end of his life, which was released after after he died that was about the stars in Lyra, and the guy that wrote the song said he didn't just think about it, he actually believed he was from Lyra. So that's the whole thing is this may be much more complex than what we think, these interactions. And next time we're going to play aliens and we're going to come and, it's just like it's Shakespeare, like all the world's a stage. And we got to remember who we
Mhm.
are. We're spiritual beings playing avatars, playing things, and we keep getting caught in the illusion of believing. Even I've done a lot of AI searches trying to push this thing about, this idea of the illusion that sound is not really sound. There's a video. I'm going to probably do a YouTube on it, but there's a video by Richard Feynman, who's some people called him the smartest man of the 20th century, won the Nobel Prize and stuff. And he talks about we don't really realize how complex the world is. We think that we're actually seeing stuff and through our eyes and stuff like that. And he said it's like an insect in a pool, sitting in a pool on the wave. And this insect's bouncing up and down, and people are jumping in the pool all over the place. And there's these waves going all different directions, this way, this way, this way. And all these waves come in these little holes in your eyes, and they get turned to electric signals, and they go back in there, and you create this image. And the human mind is able to do that. Take all the people who are jumping in the pool, take all these waves, put them together, and make an image. And then you start to realize how complex the world actually is, because you get down to the fact that the brain is actually just molecules moving around at high speed and stuff like that, and everything is a vibration. So you got one vibration taking other vibrations and composing them and stuff like that, and you start going like, wow, it's just so complex. But it's easier to live with the illusion. Just do your thing, pay your bills and stuff like that. The people
Mm.
I've talked to a couple of people. In fact, I now live in Vancouver. My son, one of his friends came from where we used to live. And then the guy said, "Oh, I heard your UFOs, they're just closing." And I started talking, whatever. And he stops me. He says, "That's okay. That's enough. I lost you three
Yeah.
sentences ago." And you realize that, certain people are going to catch on, but
Yeah.
it's the young generation that the old generation will die off, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. So I think you've added a part to maybe I'll add it in the book, this idea that there's this spiritual evolution happening as well, because you always wonder why, the cattle mutilation stopped, the ground traces. There hasn't been a ground trace for probably 25 years where it lands and
Oh, is
leaves
that right?
marks. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Rendlesham Forest. That was Rendlesham Forest 40 years ago, and people sort of assume that still goes on. And no, it doesn't happen anymore. And it used to be, you remember they used to have angel hair would drop out of
Oh, yeah.
and all this stuff. And you talk to people now, they wouldn't even know what angel hair is. People speaking light language and stuff like that, and the channeling and all that stuff. In 75, it was very clear. It was like there's UFOs and they're
Mm.
probably extraterrestrials, and they're going to eventually land. And that was it. There was nothing else in terms of the stuff, and you just gets more complex, more complex. It's almost like the trickster thing. They put something else in to throw you off to realize, no, it's not the world you think it is. And as long as you stay on that very edge, you start to learn what's actually going on. And most people, as they say, live lives of quiet desperation. They have no idea what's
Mm.
going on. And
Yeah.
so hopefully this happens. Is Bashar going to be involved in this, or is he, you talk about his role in this 2027 thing?
The Essassani people, he is from the planet Essassani. He is called a Sassani individual. His people are going to be one of the people that we make contact with, but they're not going to be the first, and they're probably going to be a while before we have that level of contact. Now, why that is, I'm not exactly certain. I remember somebody asking Bashar why that was the case, and he said, "Well, how many of me do you want? I mean, I'm pretty good, aren't I? Shouldn't I be enough?" He was making a joke of it, but I think the point is that there is some staging that we will understand, but I don't understand right now, and I don't think anybody really does, why it'll be the Pleiadians and then the hybrids and then whomever else will follow on there. At some point, though, um, you'll be walking down the street with extraterrestrial beings. They will be here walking amongst us. Literally, they're already here. They call themselves the precursors. They're a very small group. Um, you hear people say this all the time. If you sit in an airport and
Oh
you
yeah.
maybe I got this from one of your recent.
From that's what's the guy who wrote the Tom DeLonge's book, the yeah, I can't remember the author's name. Yeah, the where you sit in the airport and you send out a signal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Lavenda, Peter Lavenda.
Pete Levin, right,
Yeah.
right. I
Yeah.
like Peter. He does some really good stuff,
Yeah.
and he was the one that came up with that. If you sit in
Yeah.
an airport, he said he even did it. You
Yeah.
sit in an airport and you just say, okay, since there's all these people milling around here,
Yeah.
you know, we show yourselves. If you're an extraterrestrial, show yourselves. And one of them would wink at him.
Yeah. Yeah, that Tim Good started that. The guy that wrote
Oh,
about
is
Top
that
Secret.
right?
He started that. He talked about being in Grand Central Station, and he was sitting there and he was waiting, and then the guy sort of came and he was looking at him. And he said, "If you're an extraterrestrial, touch your nose." And the guy would touch his nose. It's like, and Tim Good was like, he always had wore a suit. He was a straight
Yes.
guy. It's like, really? It's like, and then Lavenda had that, and Lavenda had the other one where he had the other good story he tells is the one where the Men in Black guy is in the black Cadillac and he's got the big thing. He's photographing him and he goes, "What's going on?" He's going to the car to confront this guy as to what's going on. And all of a sudden, this car is station wagon pulls in and these two little ladies get out and they block his car so he can't get out and the car takes off and then these two women ask for something. There was a name of a company that he had put an application to get a contract with or something in Ohio or something like that, and it's name and they say, "Oh, sorry," and they get in their car and drive off and stuff like that. And then years later he's in Singapore airport and this somebody taps him on the shoulder and he looks and it's one of these two women. He goes, "What's going on?" And she goes, he's following her and she gets lost in the crowd. And you see that kind of stuff. That's like where they're interacting like that trickster thing where even
Mm,
James Lakatsky, the guy that ran OSAP program, where he said, we have confirmed Men in Black. And then of course everybody thought it was government. And he said, no, 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 the real Men in Black. And
yeah.
this idea, that and he said, well, what are they doing? Are they scaring you or are they pulling you in? And what it is,
Yes.
it's this weird thing that you can't figure out. Like this weird story. This car was taking photographs and all this kind of stuff, or helicopters. I just heard Chris Bledsoe tell a story, and I didn't ever heard this part of the story before. Chris Bledsoe tells a story that during his event, when he got back to the house, they saw the first being, and then they were in the house, and then he wanted a cigarette, so he opened the window to have a cigarette, and the second being was there. But in between there's a helicopter over top of the house. And his son and him heard this helicopter. And you start seeing these things with the helicopters, low flying helicopters. And a lot of them, they have an orb in the back behind the helicopter. And you go, like anybody else got, and sure enough, people would send me photographs of black helicopters that are following them around with an orb in the photograph. And you start wondering, is this actually a black helicopter or is this, they just want to hype the
Yes.
story. They want you to keep telling these stories and people are telling these stories. And it sort of raises the consciousness of people realizing something's going on. We really don't know this awe and curiosity. Because if you don't have awe and curiosity, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to go back to doing whatever you're doing. But it's just drags you down this rabbit hole, and you just remember these stories, and just you're trying to figure it out. And that's what they want. They want you to in a different
Yes.
attitude where you realize you don't know everything. There's other things that you need to know. So
Yeah, that's well, what do you call that? Your theory of wow?
yeah,
That's
or I call it the Jesus circus. It's like, they do all the miracles and you're trying to, and everybody's following the guy around and then he gives you the message. And once he's got a big
yeah,
crowd around him. And, but you see that trickster thing actually does really, you start looking at it and you realize, yeah, this is what they're doing. They're just doing this weird stuff. They're not giving you 100%. They even sometimes they seem to sabotage their own witnesses with, crazy things that where they're from or something like that. And or they'll say you don't understand like where you're from. You wouldn't understand. It's like, what do you mean I wouldn't understand? Like how could I not understand? And so it's have you seen the same as me? Do you seen this has been a thing if you had a choice? Like I always think like if a reincarnation thing, like man, I'm gonna get a real lousy life next time because this one was just so sitting on the edge. Like what more could you ask for that you're not going to maybe get the same opportunity to do and learn what we learn now. And it's always scared like, oh,
yeah,
I'm going to be like a refugee or somebody starving in some country or something like that because I got such a good one here. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but it's like, wow. I mean, we got to live at almost like at the time of
same,
Jesus. So that's the signing of the
same,
Constitution. Yeah.
same. Absolutely. Now, with that said, we have an infinite amount of time and an infinite amount of
Yeah.
experiences, and so we'll probably be that beggar on the street, and and my son will be my father, and
Yeah.
we'll have all of those different things because we got all the time in the world. Well, time doesn't exist,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in the spirit community and especially in the extraterrestrial community. They'll all tell you we have no time. We have sequences of things. This happens, this happens, this happens, but there's no time involved. But so the idea of reincarnation
Yeah.
is one of those conversations that I have with people if they want to have a linear type of
Yeah.
conversation about physical reality, because there's really no reincarnation
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
It's multiple lives all at the same time,
Yeah. Yeah.
simultaneous experiences of life. And but yeah, I do. All I know is that in this physical body, in this experience I'm having right now, this is a ball.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
so much fun, and there's so much learning and and I'll tell you what's even really more fun than that. Not just the personal experience, it's to watch everybody around me start to change.
Yeah.
Now, not to change to be like me,
Yeah.
just changing and how they change, and people who wouldn't believe that there was a ghost 5 years ago
Oh yeah.
are
Yeah.
now out,
Yeah.
shooting laser beams
Sure.
at,
Yeah.
at extraterrestrial ships and getting feedback from them. So
Yeah.
it's a time of change. It's
Yeah.
the age of Aquarius and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Uh, it's phenomenal, and I'm sure that this is a much more fun thing than begging on the streets. So
Yeah. Yeah.
right now, I just kind of keep my focus right
Yeah.
and relevant. But we're going to all have all those experiences, Grant. We're going to have them
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
and like I said, we're up there talking about how much fun we're having right now,
Yeah.
and what we're learning from each other. And I sure appreciate your
Yeah.
time, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll say
Sure.
is like I sort of pointed out, and I didn't realize it myself till I sort of thought about one day, and it was the idea that we think that nothing's happening or we're not making any headway, and then you realize that if you say Area 51 anywhere in the world, they go, yeah, I know what that is, and you
Mm-hmm.
say near-death experience, they may not believe it. Yeah, I know what that is, and I was going to mention to Kai Dickens when I'm interviewing her, you're going to get the role or Moody, the first near-death experience book. And I'm going to say it'll be telepathy. They'll say, "Oh, that's Kai Dickens," because she's the one that sort of
Yes.
opened it up and did the series. And it turns out it was like Christmas Day. She had 1.5 million hits. She outdid Rogan. She was the top podcast in the world. And then you realize this is telepathy. So we are making some headway. It's just you don't realize it. We live like Westerners. We want everything yesterday. And we don't
Yeah.
realize there's infinite time and this thing is unraveling. But it's just wonderful to actually be in as close to this scene and realize what's going on as we have. And I've appreciated having chats with you. And I'll get Cindy together and we'll
Good.
have another
Oh, I'd
conversation.
like to do that. That's
It's,
great.
yeah, beautiful.
Say hi to Desta for
Yeah,
me. Thank you
Desta's
for your
busy. They're
time.
they're doing business, and she always said she couldn't write a book. And I said to her the other day, I said, "What book are you working on? Number four?" She said, "No, on number five." And she's got 15 books ready to go. She
Well,
suddenly, she's the author. She'll probably have more books than me, but she said at the beginning, "I can't write a book." And I just said the channeling stuff. I said, "Just put it in a book. I mean, just nobody's going to read it anyway. I mean, a few people are
right,
going to read
right.
it, and put it in a book." And then she did that, and then she did the second book, and now she's up to 5 books. And I said,
I
it's going to be
know.
like Oprah. She's going to have a book of the month club, but it's going to be her books. This month I got this one coming out. Next month I got this one. She's doing kids MJ12 and MK Ultra kids. She believes
Yeah.
she was in a program where they had special kids and stuff like that. And she went and detailed all this stuff to psychiatrists in Winnipeg that was writing about this. Just fascinating. And so I'll be interviewing her. Maybe you want to come in on the interview. We'll
Oh,
we'll
I'd
we'll
look.
talk to her.
Sure, sure. Funny thing about Desta, I can remember when you and I first started
Yeah.
10 years ago, whenever it was,
Yeah.
we first started having conversation with each other and doing these types of things. We kept trying to, I used to send emails to Desta and say, will you please join the conversation? You've got a
Yeah.
lot to say. I don't want to do that. I don't want
Yeah. Yeah.
to. And now y'all doing the legacy files, what, once a week or
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
she's so good with you. And I know I give you a hard time about her being the brains of the
Yeah.
operation,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you the truth, Grant. She's
Yeah.
the brains of your
Yeah,
operation.
yeah. Well, that's I say like like a collection is a book behind me. Everybody has UFOs has their collection of books. I think you're one of the people that reads them all, and Desta reads them all. Like she's got thousands of books, and she's actually actually read them. So I say, like,
Yeah.
I'll go in the index and I'm looking for like, now I'm looking for music. So I'll just go through all my books and look music and see if there's a related story or whatever. But she's actually read the book. So she is pretty intelligent, and she's better looking on camera than I am in terms of, so
And both of us for that matter.
you got it. Okay, we'll talk
Hey
again. I'll get
man, thanks
Cindy,
a
and
lot.
you'll meet
Thanks a
Cindy,
lot.
who's believes she's from the she's she's absolutely sure she's from Pleiades, and I'm sure she'd love to talk to you and get some of the background that you've got, because you're a wealth of knowledge on all sorts of subjects, and especially the mediums thing, which I became very interested in. I thought people got to know about physical mediumship, because I think that was extremely important to see. Even the issue of the hand, where I got the chance to interview Leslie Kane, and New York Times reporter, and all I wanted to know is one thing: did you actually see the hand? And tell
Yeah,
me about the hand. How did it appear? Did you touch it? Yes, I touched it. I saw it. I've seen it 4 or 5 times and stuff like that. That was all I wanted to know, is to put that message across that this hand appeared in front of a New York Times reporter, and she felt it, and she said it was a real hand, and that changes everything. But things go slow, and it'll all catalog, and people will suddenly realize, and all this stuff will become important. And I'm glad that you and I had a part in sort of telling the story to the world.
Dave, you're right. I'll see you back in soon again, I hope.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.